All right, episode 3 of Big Brother all wrapped up. We've seen our first veto competition, our first veto ceremony, and we are gearing up for our first eviction tomorrow night. This episode largely revolved around Kevin. He, at the start of the episode, you could see he's just so in his head. He doesn't have any sort of confidence. And, you really got to feel for the guy. It's the first week. He already feels isolated and alone. And even if he survives the week, where is his game headed? At best, he's going to be the bottom peg in an alliance of, whatever it ends up being, Cody, Enzo, plus whoever ends up in that alliance. Even if he ends up working with them, he's now become the first disposable part. And you have to feel for the guy because he was reaching out, he was trying, and he was getting nothing in return. It's almost felt like when Kevin went to reach out, like he was too late. He was on the block, he had that target on his back, and he's out of the conversation of any sort of alliance or gameplay. And it's pretty rough because, in my opinion, there's a good chance that we don't see him go home tomorrow, that we end up seeing Keesha go home because, Keesha, as much as this episode was about Kevin, you got to wonder, how did we see so little of Keesha when she's on the block and potentially going home? I don't even see her for most of the episode. Did we see her have a conversation with anybody? Which is a little just bizarre at this point. Aren't you gonna fight to save yourself? We get that little diary room shot of her at the end that she's gonna kick her social game up a notch. And it's like, Keesha, you don't have any sort of social game so far. So kicking zero up a notch, that just puts you into the game. That's not going to save you or get people to want to work for you or work with you. I just think Keesha just started this game off too slow, and as a result is most likely to be our first host guest sent home. We did have a veto competition today. And that veto was just like a kind of endurance-y puzzle kind of thing where the contestants had to rock back and forth on a banana to get themselves 90 seconds with which they could stack wooden fruit pieces. And we only had one person buzz in with a solution. And I thought that was quite bizarre. I was expecting a few people to lose track of the timer and get sent home because of that, but I wasn't expecting there to only be one person to ring that bell. It came down to the end. Keesha was still in, Kevin was still in, and I believe Tyler was still in, and Enzo had rang his bell in with 18 fruits. And we see Kevin with 19 fruits not ringing in. And, at that point in the competition, Keesha was still in it. Tyler wasn't really contending. He didn't look like he had enough time to get a stack large enough that could potentially rival Enzo's. And Kevin has got to ring that bell at that point. It seemed like it was about less than a minute left, and just put that pressure on Keesha. Even if Keesha happens to beat Kevin at that point, someone is still coming off the block, and you open the door for Cody to potentially take a shot at a bigger target than you. So in my opinion, it benefited Kevin whether himself or Keesha won, and did not benefit him when Enzo won. I still am of the opinion that Kevin is going to be safe tomorrow and Keesha will be the one sent packing, but this is Big Brother and these votes and situations can change quickly. We had a little bit of alliance stuff going on today, not too much. Ian and Nicole left, they made the Million Club, I think is what they called it. You know, I think what they intended was the Millionaire Club, not just the Million Club. That just didn't seem right. Um, Not sure how much weight there is in that alliance. You know, they did say final two with each other, but I'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. You know, their real basis for that alliance is, hey, we've both won before, so in order for there to be a two-time winner, we're going to have to be the final two. And it's pretty good logic because we saw before when Ian won and Dan Giesling should have easily taken a full sweep in that jury, and somehow Ian comes out on top. And it's like, yeah, that is people just being, one, vindictive of how good Dan was as a player, and two, not wanting there to be a repeat winner. That was a real shame in my opinion, but you know, there is some validity to what Ian's saying in that there will not be a repeat winner until there's two winners sitting in the final two. We also had Black Girl Magic form. That's Bailey and Davon. I'm interested to see what those two can do together, who they end up working with, because, you know, you look at our overall cast for this season of All-Stars, and Bailey and Davon are two players who haven't had the best track record. You know, I think that David is the only person who has placed worse than Bailey and Davon. You know, there might be another name in that mix that I'm forgetting right now, but they're saying that they're forces to be reckoned with, and from what we've seen in the past, that is not true. You know, this is a house full of people who have at least finished in the top three, top four, versus this tandem that has some 10th place finishes on their hands. So hopefully they can figure something out and work together, because it would be interesting to see them both be able to put something together and do some good in this game. Overall, it really, the vibe of the house seems to be that nobody totally wants to commit to anything. Some very, very loose alliances forming. Nobody wants to paint that target on their back, and nobody's quite ready to commit to anything serious. You know, we've basically seen some one-on-one deals that have the potential to switch into larger deals later on. And also, I kind of got a kick out of seeing pretty much every person in the house come up to Tyler and say that they wanted to work with him. And if I remember correctly, that was basically exactly what happened to him on his season and ended up biting him in the ass in the end. So kind of interesting to see just the same thing happen again for Tyler. You know, he does seem like a nice guy, so why wouldn't you want to work with him? But I think that's going to wrap everything up for this week. The veto not used. Kevin and Keesha still on the block. Eviction tomorrow night. And yeah, we will just have to tune in tomorrow to find out who our first host guest to head home will be. All right, until then, I will see you later.